Hi everyone, in this lesson we will learn more useful expressions we can use to talk about the place we live in. Let's first begin with the model dialogue, and afterwards we will explain everything in detail. Do you live far from here? I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. Who doesn't know Windsor? That's where... what's her name? That's where the Queen lives, sometimes. Let's first take a look at how we can ask where someone lives. Do you live far from here? Do you live far from here? Now, the standard way of asking where someone lives is by asking the question, where do you live? But a similar question we can ask is, do you live far from here? This question is commonly used when you meet someone at a certain place. So if you meet someone new at your office or someone at a party, you can ask this question to find out how far they live from the office or the party. So here in this question refers to the place you are in. And quite often we can use this question to start a conversation with someone. And although this is a yes or no question, the listener will first answer by saying yes, and most likely tell you the place he or she lives in. Let's do a speaking practice of this question. Do you live far from here? Do you live far from here? Great job, well done. Next, to specifically say where I live, the person B said this. I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. First, we say where I live by saying I live in Windsor. And we can use this structure I live in to say the place we live in. Then in the next statement, we use this structure to the west of London to explain where you live in relation to a more well-known place. And depending on the location, we can use the words north, south, west, or east. And we often use this kind of sentence when we think that the other person might not know the place we live in. Here are a few more example sentences. I live in Stratford-upon-Avon. It's a town to the south of Birmingham. I live in Cheltenham. It's a town to the east of Gloucester. I live in Salisbury. It's a town to the north of Southampton. Names of certain English towns and cities can be quite difficult to pronounce. For example, Salisbury looks like it should be pronounced Salisbury, but it's actually pronounced Salisbury. Salisbury. So as we do the speaking practice, please listen carefully and repeat after me. Let's now do a speaking practice of these sentences. I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. I live in Stratford-upon-Avon. It's a town to the south of Birmingham. I live in Cheltenham. It's a town to the east of Gloucester. I live in Salisbury. It's a town to the north of Southampton. Excellent job, well done. Now, when we tell the other person about the specific location of our town or city by saying something like, it's a town to the west of London, we are assuming that the other person might not know where the town or the city is. So if they do know where the town or the city is, then they might say something like this. Who doesn't know Windsor? Who doesn't know Windsor? Now, this question is not asking about the people who don't know Windsor the town. Instead, we use this question to suggest that there is nobody who doesn't know Windsor, meaning that Windsor is a well-known place and that everybody knows Windsor. So we are kind of telling the other person that they have made the wrong assumption about us because we know about Windsor. Here are a few more example questions. Who doesn't know Stratford upon Avon? Who doesn't know Cheltenham? Who doesn't know Salisbury? Okay, so let's now do a speaking practice of these sentences. Who doesn't know Windsor? Who doesn't know Stratford upon Avon? Who doesn't know Cheltenham? Who doesn't know Salisbury? Excellent job, well done. Lastly, when person A fails to remember what Windsor is famous for, person B said this. That's where the Queen lives. That's where the Queen lives. To provide information or description of a certain place, you can first say that's where, and then use a clause to say more about that place. And as we have already learned in this course, a clause is a group of words that usually has a subject and a verb, which in this case is the Queen and lives. And Windsor Castle is where the Queen sometimes lives in Windsor. Here are a few more example sentences. That's where Shakespeare was born. That's where they have a famous horse race. That's where the famous cathedral is. The first sentence is about Stratford upon Avon. The second sentence is about Cheltenham. And the last is about Salisbury. Okay, so let's now do a speaking practice of these sentences. That's where the Queen lives. That's where Shakespeare was born. That's where they have a famous horse race. That's where the famous cathedral is. Excellent job again, well done. Let's now listen to the whole dialogue again. Do you live far from here? I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. Who doesn't know Windsor? That's where... Oh, what's her name? That's where the Queen lives, sometimes. Okay, so let's now do a speaking practice of this dialogue. As always, we will do 2 speaking practices and all the lines will be on the screen. So when it's your turn, please read the line and participate in the dialogue. Let's begin. Do you live far from here? Who doesn't know Windsor? That's where... Oh, what's her name? I live in Windsor. It's a town to the west of London. That's where the Queen lives, sometimes. Fantastic effort today, well done. Okay, so in this lesson, we learned more useful expressions we can use to describe where we live. The next lesson is the speaking drill lesson, and I will see you soon again in the lesson after that. Bye bye.